Here's Descartes' proof for the existence of God in Meditation 3. And the first thing I'm going to do is sketch out the proof. And what I mean by sketch here will become evident pretty quickly. So the way the proof looks is like this. First, causal principle. Second, source of ideas principle. Third, I have an idea of God. So therefore, God exists. Now that really is a very condensed way of outlining Descartes' proof for the existence of God. It shows us that we could think of it as having three premises and a conclusion, but from that sketch, we don't learn anything at all about how we're supposed to make the inference from these three specific premises to this weighty conclusion. So what we need to do is work through the reasoning that Descartes uses to get from these premises to the conclusion. And the way we're going to do that is by starting with the third premise. And we're going to say, okay, what does that mean? I have an idea of God. And then we're going to use the causal principle and the source of ideas principle to reason our way to the conclusion that since I have an idea of God, it must be that God exists. Now to do this and to follow Descartes on this, it really helps to have the scales of objective reality and formal reality in front of us. Now let's start, as we said, with the third premise. I have an idea of God. And let's think about where that fits in our scales of objective and formal reality. And of course, the idea of God is right here, because it is an idea of an infinite substance. Now, one way to motivate this argument is to say, well, look, I have an idea of God. Where did that idea come from? Now, because of the source of ideas principle, the idea of God can't just come from another idea and another idea and another idea and another idea. Eventually, the idea of God has to come from something that isn't an idea, so it must have some amount of formal reality. Now, what do I know exists and has some amount of formal reality? Well, the only thing I know that exists is me, I, the thinker, and I am a finite substance. And the reason why I'm a finite substance is because I'm not infinite, and I know I'm not infinite because I make mistakes, for example, or I doubt things. So there's lots and lots of evidence that I am not an infinite substance. I'm not infinitely good, I'm not infinitely powerful, I'm not infinitely knowing, so I'm a finite substance. Now our question becomes, could I be the cause of my idea of God? Could it be that I am causing this idea of God? And the answer is, of course, no, because of the causal principle. Because the causal principle tells us that there must be at least as much reality in the cause as there is in the effect. If I were the cause of the idea of God, I would have less reality formally than the idea of God has objectively. So I cannot be the cause of the idea of God. And yet, the source of ideas principle tells me that there must be something that is the cause of the idea of God, which isn't just another idea, and it has some amount of formal reality. And the causal principle tells me that that something or other has to have at least as much reality as the idea of God, so there's no choice but to say that God exists. And God is the cause of my idea of God. Descartes says in Meditation 3 that I could be the cause of all of my ideas, absolutely all of them, except one, the idea of God. Because all of my ideas, even the idea of the evil genius, are ideas of finite substances, or possibly accidents and modes. So of course I can be the cause of those ideas because I'm perfect enough. And by saying that, I just slipped in something really, really important, which is that for Descartes, these scales of reality are also scales of perfection. As we travel up these scales, we approach more and more perfect things. On the left side here, in objective reality, the ideas become more perfect because they are fuller. They represent more to my mind. On the right-hand side here, when it comes to formal reality, as we go up the scale of formal reality, things become more perfect because they depend less on other things for their very existence. So again, it's a unique feature of the idea of God that it is the only one idea that I cannot be causing, because I don't have enough reality to be the cause of that idea. I am not perfect enough to be the cause of an idea of a supremely perfect being. And yet, that idea must have some source that isn't just another idea, and so there must be a perfect being that is the cause of my idea of God. And that's how Descartes proves that God exists in Meditation 3.